what was kind of written about him. So Emmanuel Reyes, also known as Ray, was heading towards a gang lifestyle and making very poor and even dangerous decisions. He was running with a really rough crowd and headed for a very dark future. As a result, he was sent to juvenile hall several times. He spent half of the year there during one particular time. He used his time in juvenile hall to contemplate his life and his future. Upon release, Ray has shown a tremendous amount of growth. He has began taking his academic journey seriously. He's even taken it upon himself to counsel and mentor other students who are heading down the same path that he was heading down himself. Ray has impressed all of his teachers. He's friendly to his fellow students. Even though he's a little shy, and he is a little bit, we had a funny moment there at the dinner. But students look up to him as a leader. He's very engaged in school and has taken many extra CTE classes. Ray is currently in the Career Technical Education Pathway completer of Tourism, Fitness, and Recreation, as well as automobile. So he will complete in both of those areas. And so Ray was recognized at the region, but we are proud to also say that Ray will represent the region at the state.
At the state.
And so we're very excited and happy and proud of this young man. Good job, Ray. Some other items I just want to highlight and then we'll move on is earlier this month, Dr. Peterson and President Campbell, Director Turcoy, and myself were invited to be readers at the GIS Read Across America event. You'll see again some pictures there. And your handouts are on the screen. I will tell you, it was so much fun. I believe Miss Lily read the book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. Dr. Peterson read One Fish, Two Fish, Three Fish Go, something like that. And then I read Take Me Out to the Ballpark. So again, very wonderful and exciting time that we were able to be a part of. Finally, a few other highlights. Miss Lily and Dr. Peterson were invited and attended the COA Middle School International Women's Day celebration. Really a wonderful, from my understanding, a really well put together event. And I'm quite sure Miss Lily will share more about that in her comments. The GCC was chosen to present two different presentations at our upcoming AXA North State Charter Conference, excuse me. Director Elliott and Dr. Peterson are doing a workshop on adaptive leadership, while Dr. Gold, also Sava's Michael Mendoza, and Dr. Peterson will be doing a presentation on teacher leadership. So really looking forward to each of those. Well, believe it or not, we are in the second Crucial Conversations cohort of this school year. It started and right now this is our largest class. We have 9 members in this class, and this is our first class with the new set of video and curriculum and resources. And so Dr. Peterson is leading that, and that's off to the races. And then finally, before I close out, I cannot stop without saying our own Dr. Peterson was recognized in Comstock magazine in their Salute to Women's Leadership. Very wonderful, nice write-up. We have given each of you a copy. You'll see a copy of it on the screen, but really proud of her for all of her work and all that she's doing to represent the GCC. So want to wish her congratulations. And then finally, board, our end of the year board reports will be starting at our April 18th board meeting. And all of our admin are excited and looking forward.
I'm sure
To share with you everything that's happening. And with that being said, that is my report. If you have any questions, I'll be more than
Any
happy to answer.
comments, board members? Anything? I read the article on the Dr. Peterson Comstock, and it is very enlightening, and very human, if I could use that word, because she talks about her background and where she came from and how she got to be where she is now. So kudos to her for her truth and just everything that she has to say. Really wonderful. So thank you. And yes, when we get the board comments, I will share some of my experiences that I've had this month. So we'll do that at board comments. And now we are ready to move into the business part of why we're here for our special board meeting. And that's to approve the second interim revised budget and financial report. And so with that, I guess I'll have to introduce, you gonna introduce,
Yeah,
you will introduce. Her.
I have
Right.
that, so
Open that.
our second interim report will be handled by our chief business official, so Myra Reyna, who I think heard our team. I've done a lot of work to get this done, and so thank you, Myra, and we'll give it to you.
Thank you.
And there is information also in your binder.
Good afternoon, Board President, Board Trustees. Thank you for coming on midday and changing our time frame, but we are here to approve the budget and to go over it. So I will go over a brief introduction of what this budget entails, our LCFF assumptions, our enrollment and ADA information, our unduplicated pupil percentage information. I'm gonna go over our revenue, our expenditures, our fund balance, and then some risks and a conclusion. Just a brief update on what we will be going over, what the second interim entails. It's gonna be really a comparison between our second interim, which is our revised budget, and our first interim, which you approved back in December for expenditures through 10/31. So this will go through actuals of January 31st, 2023. Your funds have your original adopted budget, your board approved budget, which is your first interim. It has your revised budget, which is now your second interim, and then it has actuals for expenditures through January 31st of 2023. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of the LCFF assumptions and kind of how that drives our revenues. This is the biggest component of our revenues. And we have a statutory COLA of 6.56 this year. We also have a documentation COLA of 6.70, which is not on this slide, but just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. And then this is just some information from our dartboard and kind of how our LCFF calculator is kind of calculated. You have your base grants or your base amount per ADA, and then you have grade span adjustments for your TK3 grade levels, and then you also can see that you have that for the 9-12. So we get additional funding because the state feels that those are populations that are harder to teach, right? It just takes a lot more effort with the little ones and also with our high schoolers that are getting ready to go out in the real world. And then we get supplemental concentration add-ons for all our grade levels if we qualify, which we do. And then this last year, they added a TK add-on for our new TKers. As you know, there's a lot of requirements for our TKers, including ratios to teacher-student ratios or adult to student ratios. So this is just some additional dollars to kind of help support those requirements. You can see kind of the slide or the graphics on kind of how LCFF is determined. So part of it is made up of property taxes, and then the rest is backfilled by the state. So they determine how much we're entitled to. They look at our property taxes, and then they add in the rest of it with state dollars. So that's kind of what that's illustrating. Okay, we're going to go over our enrollment numbers. As you might well remember, our first interim had an all-time high enrollment numbers, or our enrollment numbers just keep coming up. So you can see we've increased 48 students since our first interim budget, which has only been a couple months. So you do see on this particular slide the change on CCCS and SAVA at the Twin Rivers oversight. And those are actually coming up. So enrollment as of March 3rd is 723 versus CCCS versus the 606 that was reported on CBEDS. So you can see that they're starting to track back up, and then same with Saba. North Market campus is which is the one that's under the Twin Rivers district, and that's gone up significantly too. So just wanted to kind of point that out, that our second interim numbers are based on CBEDS, and our current enrollment just continues to show an upward trend. Our average daily attendance is what we are funded on, not our enrollment numbers. So we're funded on students in the seat, and we have an increase of 41.37, and that's, you know, correlated to the 48 students that we've added. So yeah, looking good. Okay. We go on to the unduplicated pupil percentage. So these are the students that are identified as foster youth, free and reduced English learners. And this slide kind of the picture, the graphics kind of show you it's an add-on to our base. And I think when we went over the components of the LCFF, that was one of the components, supplemental concentration. So the UPP, or the unduplicated pupil percentage, is used to determine how much more money we're going to get per student to serve this population of students. So for first interim, you can see the percentages, and then for second interim, you see that for 8 out of our 9 schools, we're seeing an uptick on the population, the specific population, which means we get a little bit more funding. But of course, that comes with challenges, right? Having to, especially with our immigrant population coming into to help support them in the English, you know, with the barrier, with the language barrier. So it is extra money, and it's meant to be used for that purpose, to serve those students. Okay. So I'm going to go over our revenues now. Our LCFF revenue is at 71.4 million. As I mentioned earlier, that increase of $920,000 that you see from first interim to second interim is due to our enrollment increase, our ADA increase, and our UPP increase for 8 out of the 9 sites. We also have an increase due to the COLA augmentation. It's changed slightly, but that's additional monies that go into that category. And then we go on to our federal revenue, which has a decrease of 160,000, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. Their revenue allocation or awards weren't reduced. It's the deferment of what we don't think we're going to spend. So if we get $500,000 and we think we're only going to spend half of that this year, then the other 250 will get deferred into the next year, and then you'll see that in our NYPs. So that's what that number represents. We do some of that at first interim, but as we get closer to the end of the year, we'll determine what we see that will not get spent. It's unplanned, or it's purposely going to be used multi-year, right? So for a lot of our ESSERs were awarded and had multiple years to spend down. So that's kind of what you're seeing with the federal revenue. Okay. And I won't go over each of the categories. That's just for your information to know what that 13.4 is made up of: federal revenue and LCFF revenue. So I'm going to go on to state revenues, and I just duplicated the slide so you can see the numbers on the slide. So I'm not going back and forth like I've done in the past. So we have 25.5 million of state revenue. And the biggest component here that I will mention is our 2 new block grants. So 11.1 of these dollars, so almost half of it, is the 2 new block grants. And if you see, it's the fourth bullet down. Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant and the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Block Grant. That's a big chunk of these dollars. The decrease in state revenue is due to 30% or 33% cut that potentially could come to the arts, music, and instructional materials block grant. We've reduced that with our budget to be conservative. We have not spent those dollars, but there are districts that have spent those dollars or charters that have spent those dollars. So we're trying to be proactive in ensuring that we don't overspend. We also have, like the federal grants, we have grants in here that are multi-year, like the CTIG, Strong Workforce Program. Those defer into future years for multi-year spending. So that's what makes up that decrease of 1.1. Okay. Our local revenue came down by 299,000. And that really had to do with the local grant that we received. We applied for emergency connectivity grants. We had booked all the revenue at first interim. We have not received any of the funding. We've been in communication with the grant, and that grant goes directly to the vendor that we're working with. So that's why you see the decrease in that particular line item. Move on to expenditures. Our certificated salaries increased by $32,000. And that's really just the true up of our one-time 3% payment. So we had our first set of payments in December, which that data now is a data point in our information, which now help us determine what our second semester stipends will look like. And so that's just to true up that number and make those numbers right. Our classified salaries decreased significantly, almost 400,000. And that's due to a lot of unfilled position. We have a lot of paraeducator positions that I think it's just kind of a revolving door. We hire and then some leave, and then we hire more and some leave. So paraeducators is a big line item here. We do have some clerk, custodial, open positions, campus monitor, just a lot of central positions that are still vacant and open that we have not been able to fill. So this is just a savings. As we do interims, we'll take the savings up through that date and reduce the budget by what we see or we have savings in. For our benefits, we're seeing an uptick. In December, we get information from our benefit providers on the changes for open enrollment. And as you remember, we changed the employer caps this past year. They were significantly better than they were before. And so we have a lot more people taking benefits, and so you see an increase in that category. Okay, so now let's go on to books and supplies. So that category decreased significantly, and that's due to we use a placeholder when we get a new grant. If we don't know where things are going to be spent, or we're waiting for its services to create a plan, etc., we put a placeholder in this category. And so you'll see that this category is used as a placeholder, and then you'll see it distributed elsewhere. So if you look at the slide with the numbers, you can see that a lot of it went to services and other capital outlay to cover the benefits, right? So as we get plans, things will shift and move out of that category and into other categories. So that's a big chunk of that. And then we also have more instructional materials under services. So a lot of textbooks, a lot of core curriculum is coming out in terms of licensing, which would change the category to service and other. So because we are purchasing a service and not necessarily a physical item, it changes the category to services and other. So that's a little bit of a shift that's been happening as we've moved to technology-based platforms, that's happening. And the next category is services and other. As you well know, there's huge investment from the state on ELOC. Millions and millions of dollars are being invested in this program. A lot of our services to students during intersection and summer are done with contracts. We don't have enough staff to cover these services. So we are contracting out to provide these services to students. We don't use this money, we do lose it. So we're trying to make best use of it. And I think it's across all California schools that, you know, are looking to hire an outside vendor to service our students. We have a more special education service contracts as we get students with different types of needs, deaf of hearing, etc. We do have additional obligations that we have in that category. Like I mentioned before, instructional textbook and other related softwares are starting to come out of here. And then we also have certificated teacher temporary filling of vacancies. So we do have that SPOOP contract that's coming out of this category. Moving on to capital outlay. We have a lot of CT instructional equipment. Again, this is coming out of strong workforce or the CTIC program. So you have the EV vehicle lowrider, the fire truck, the robotics and computer program. So we're seeing a lot of expenses related to that. With the new building that we just approved to lease, the CalFit, there's going to be some work. There's already work started in terms of the renovation of that building. And then also just some other enhancements to the Rancho Del Paso campus in terms of bark replacement, irrigating of the grass, etc. Okay, and then the other outgo, that's flat, so I didn't really talk about that one. That's just our debt and principal that we owe for the Rancho Del Paso site. Okay, next slide. Our fund balance. Our fund balance decreased. Our beginning balance obviously stayed the same since first interim because we had already closed the book. So our fund balance, our beginning balance is not going to change. But our ending balance will change depending on what our revenue and our expenditures are. And we're seeing a drop in our ending fund balance. But as you know, there's a lot of one-time dollars in here. And as we use it, it's eating up that beginning balance, right? Our fund balance. So that's what the 684 is associated to that. And then 83,000 was true increase of expenditures from first interim to second interim. But of course, we're serving more students also. We're serving at least 48 more since first interim. Okay. Some of the risks and challenges that we'll see coming up is that we're continually seeing inflation rates and housing prices and cost of goods increase. There's families leaving California due to increased cost of living and for political reasons. We've been fortunate that we have not seen that in our numbers. We did see that a little bit kind of creep up last year. But luckily, unlike our surrounding districts, we're seeing an uptick in enrollment. But that's not the case everywhere else. So that's just something to be aware as we move forward in the years. Mild recession is still being predicted for 2023 or 2024. So it's changed from a recession to a mild recession. So we'll kind of see what that will look like. I'm not sure if you're aware, but state revenue shortfalls of 29.5 billion since 22-23 enacted budget. So from July to now, we are short 29.5 billion state in the state budget. So that's why they're looking at the arts and music. They're looking at the COLA. They're trying to see what they're going to be doing. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens in May. And then that's what I just mentioned, potential cut to the COLA. PERS continue to increase. STRS is projected to stay flat from where it is. And then competitive salaries across surrounding districts is really difficult. And we don't have our director of human resources in here, but we can attest that it's been hard to fill positions. And we have a lot of vacancies open. We talked about 30% cut to the arts, music, and structural materials grant. That's not a done deal. That's still on the table. I'm sure we'll hear more in May. And then, of course, the cliff of the loss of the one-time funding. Our sites are going to see that impact, right? They're going to feel the fact that they've been able to purchase, you know, a lot of technology, a lot of things for our students, services, teachers, staffing, that they're going to have to get rid of because we're going to have to live within our means. So those are some of the challenges and some of the risks moving forward. And that concludes my presentation. I just want to thank my team, Valerie Rogers, Director of Business Services, Yvonne Gracer, our fiscal supervisor. We have two fiscal supervisors, Lillian Matu. Cindy Ponvar is our new budget and financial analyst. She's been helping support with a lot of the budget transfers, expense transfers, just kind of getting her feet wet in this work. So this adopted budget will be her first full cycle. And so we're ready for her to kind of just jump in. So I also want to thank site staff, the directors, campus principals, and clerks that have come in and met with us to kind of go over their budget. I think it's been very productive and a lot of changes that our team has brought forward in terms of, you know, just really looking at the future of our sites and seeing what needs, you know, are coming down, pre-planning and being proactive. And of course, our services team, you know, Maureen and Heather have a great role in supporting us with these budget meetings and supporting our sites. So I will entertain any questions.
Okay, board members, before we take a vote, let's see if we have questions and want to talk about the budget before we go into the vote. Yes.
Just a comment, I can remember back when the budget was under $10 million.
It's insane. It's a large budget.
That's 10 times 10
Yeah.
years.
And
And
I-
also it was much simpler back then when there's only one.
Yeah.
We have 9 different these are budgets that we put together. So it's a big job and you're doing a fine job.
Thank you.
I've seen it go since I've been here, it's 38, 40, 50, and I was thinking when it was 38, whoa, we doing all right. Here we're talking about 111 billion. That's incredible. But I want to go back to a couple of questions. You want to,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
okay.
gonna say, you know, looking at where we with the custodians. We go with, I think we need to take a look at the, because I think this. Give this to a. Class in Mr. Arnold program. I was kind of ashamed when I walked into that cafeteria and saw the paper up on the things there, you know. The parents was all there and I'm saying, okay. We don't have anybody cleaning up in here. I didn't talk to them, so you know. That I see that's a shortfall that we need to try to take a look at, see if we can hire that. Then with the 29 billion shortfall that the governor talked about, well, they had a 69 million, I'm 69 billion over, so 29 is not too bad. And losing but half of what he had over. So we still got like $31 billion over somewhere.
at the rain, yeah.
Charlie.
That has been my concern when we look at the shortfall that's in the governor's budget. And wondering how it's really going to affect us. You know, we have to be really, really conscious of that. Because there is a shortfall in his budget, even though 29 billion, that's a lot of shortfall. And we don't know what's really gonna show up after, you know, when they really do start focusing on the budget. I want to go back to the competitive salary across surrounding districts. So are you saying the districts are paying much more than we are now? And
I
that,
think with the increases in COLA, I think, with bargaining. Units out there, there is been significant increases. Some of those agreements are multi-year agreements. And so we are kind of looking at that and seeing what we can do for our organization that will bring
Great.
that back at a further time.
good,
And just to add to that,
Yeah.
even in our preliminary review, we do continue to see that. For a number of our positions, we are competitive in that mid-range. And even in comparison to our neighboring districts, we're around that mid-range. So we remain somewhat competitive, but we're always looking for ways that we can continue to be more competitive, which
That's-
is why this year we increased our
Yeah.
benefits contribution. We continue to offer something that a lot of charters don't offer with stirs and perks. So we'll continue to highlight how we are competitive as we
Yeah.
still, even up to last night, Omar and I was talking about proposals in terms of our salaries and things like that moving expenses.
yeah, that's great. Because what I've been hearing, other districts are looking for teachers and staff too. So, we're not by ourselves. There's a shortage. And teachers, they're moving out. I was reading an article the other day. They're saying it's just not worth it. All of the constraints and everything that is required of staffing now teachers. And I'm saying I don't want to do it anymore. So anyway, so we continue to look at that. Any other?
I'm gonna have talk about competitive districts. Are you talking about regular district, charter school?
So,
Reg- I was talking about regular district. Yeah.
Because I see some of the charter schools throwing out some money. I don't know why, where they get money.
Yeah, no, I was talking about regular district.
and our analysis is looking across both. So we're looking at all of our 5 authorizer districts as well as other similar size districts in the state to, that serves about 6,000 students, as well as charters.
Okay, any other? Thank you so much. You and your staff, we gotta take a vote. Okay, so we're now ready for a vote to approve the second interim revised budget and financial report.
Move to approve.
Move to approve,
Second,
move to second. All right. Roll call. Mr. Block,
Yes.
Mr. Mandrick,
yes.
Lily Campbell, yes. The financial interim revised second interim has been approved unanimously with board members present. Thank you so very much for your hard work, and it takes a lot of work and energy to put this together, so thank you. All right, and at this point, we will be moving into closed session. Employee personnel matter pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. You want to stay here or we from closed section, and we are back and no report, just information on it. So thank you. And now board comments, that's where we are, board comments. And I said I would talk about what I have been doing this month. And I had a great time with Read Across America GIS, as you can see the picture. Well, I just wooed those little kids. I had them eating out my hand. It was good to be back. It felt really good. We had a great time and I dearly loved it and I'm ready to go back. If anyone wants to call me, I'm ready. So thank you, GIS, for asking us to come. And the women's recognition was very good. And I saw where we are spending some of our money on the arts and the music programs that Futures, was it Futures? Yeah. Where were we?
You were COA.
COA, that's right, COA. It was very, very good. And I congratulated the director of the music program for his working with the students. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was so good to be back in person to these events and to see so many people. So it was great to be there. So thank you. And now I'm gonna rush through this. Anything else from any of the other board members? So we can get Mr. Block out. So the next board meeting
That will be next Tuesday, March 21st for the retreat.
at 8:30 a.m. Oh,
8 a.m. if you want to get bread.
Yeah, if you would like food, I'll feed you at 8.
well, I guess I'll see you at 8 o'clock then on March.
School there, Mark, so you know, I'll be there about it before then.
All right, we shall be there. Any other comments? Any other thing that's good for the organization, board members? No, cabinet? No,
No, just thank you, board, for your flexibility and being here today for this meeting. And again, to Elmira and her team,
Yes,
thank you
thank
so much
you.
for your work and getting us ready for today.
yes, thank you very much. So please give our compliments and to all of your staff people and tell them thanks for the information.
And also, I have to say, Miss Lydia over there for running that side of the house today. So
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Lydia.
part of our
Thank you.
training and
Yeah,
growth and development.
I love it.
and we're so glad, Miss Melissa, that you made it back. Sorry, it's full.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, very good. So with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So move. Second, all in favor? Aye. Meeting is closed.